Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Bluetron, back again with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. So, like most Americans, I haven't been having a good week. I'm really actually kind of finding it hard to get out of bed every morning. It really feels like the country is like on the precipice of the abyss. It's a dark time for America, and I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. I just can't believe that Zoodiacs are about to come out in the TCG. And these Zoodiac monsters that are about to jump over the Japanese-American border, they're not bringing weak cards. They're bringing rats. They're bringing broad bulls. So because of this, I'm already looking to the horizon. I'm kind of hoping the set after this one includes something, anything, to beat back these beastly monsters, and maybe some support in the aptly named Maximum Crisis might give an unlikely hero the tools to compete. I am talking about Zefra. So let's jump into the deck and I'll show you what I've found and what I'm playing. So here's the list. Now I'm sure right away some things are jumping out at you, especially the rat peers, after I just spent 30 seconds explaining why they're going to ruin America. But before you all bungle my beast hole, I'm going to give you an explanation of Zefra, why I previously avoided it, a brief overview of what I expect the deck to do, and a card-by-card breakdown of the individual choices I've made. So firstly, Zefra is a deck that I've avoided like the plague for a fair amount of time. Now for those of you who don't know the rich and important lore of Yu-Gi-Oh! All the recent sets take place in this weird other world where there's some sort of fight going on about the dual terminal. It's this big tribal war between the different archetypes of Yu-Gi-Oh! Also, it's a shitty arcade cabinet from Japan. There have been like 30,000 chapters in this story, and all of them are told really poorly, but I'm pretty sure the Zefra are supposed to be like the ultimate heroes and represent the best of their specific archetypes in a coalition. Unfortunately, because each one was made to specifically supplement their individual deck's playstyle, usually by adding pendulum elements to an archetype that doesn't pendulum summon, making a purely Zefra deck would be like making a fusion deck and then like throwing in Shaddoll fusion, Brilliant fusion, every card with fusion on it, and then hope for the best. This really didn't sound exciting to me, and if people wanted to watch me play a pendulum deck with zero synergy outside of its scales and zero ability to make plays, you can just tune into the Abyss Actors profile on my channel. However, new releases in Maximum Crisis, along with the Zoodiac engine, have breathed a new life into this collection of absurd tribal support cards. The lack of consistency has really been solved by the release of this completely ridiculous search spell. The lack of playmaking has been solved by the release of this boss monster, Zefra Garfield. And the lack of powerful board setup has been solved by an exciting setup combo, which is the purpose of this list, enabled by the new cards. I'll explain it once we get in-game, but it's highly searchable, requires you to open 3 really easy-to-open cards, and enables an entire board setup, including a totally awesome. The backup plan is good too, because the deck always had some innately powerful cards like Oracle of Zefra and Divine Strike, and those are still searchable even if you don't do the combo. But now that the rest of the deck is kind of as innately good at those cards, things are looking up. Now, I will warn you, because I am who I am and I do what I do, I've included 3 copies of Shaddoll Fusion, which is my little cute tech choice. Hopefully it'll allow us to extend our combo plays instead of bricking us. But in a world where Vanity's Fiend seems really good, making Winda also seems alright. So, we're playing 3 copies of Zefra Grammaton. Jesus Christ, what a name. This card is really good. It enables most of our plays. He's required for the broken turn 1 setup. He ensures that our bad hands are okay. Even without like a miraculous board build, pendulum summoning a bunch of guys twice per turn is very good, and he allows us to get guys that aren't in our hand to our extra deck. Next, we have 2 copies of Zefra Nui, Secret of the Zing. You may remember this guy from a bunch of other decks. He is the actually good Zefra card. This guy extends a lot of our combos, synergizes very well with the Satellar Zefrexai, which we will get into in a second. Next, we have Zefrexai himself, Treasure of the Zing. Redheaded stepchild of the Zing is what I've been calling him, because he's fine, but not great. His utility's pretty limited. He makes guys tuners, allows us to go into synchros, but because space in the extra is so tight, we don't get to use him as much as I want to. We really just want the scale. After that, we've got Zefraxa, this Necros Zefra, who can special summon himself from the graveyard, and since we have so many ways to get him there, I'm playing him at 1. Not the worst if we draw him, but I'd prefer not to. After that, we've got Satellar Zephyrus Axaton, who pops one of your Zefras to pop one of your opponent's set cards, and Zefra Bumblun, Zefra Thubin, who pops one of your Zefras to pop one of your opponent's face-ups. Next we have Shaddoll Zefra Core. This isn't great. He specials a guy from your Pendulum Zone when he dies, which is kind of neat, but his name is necessary for the fusions, so we've got 2 in here. Last up is Zeframplica, which is hella searchable and reborns a friendly Zefra from your grave. So that's all the Zefra dudes. The rest of the monsters in here for the combo, we specifically need 1 Zephyros, who is almost a Zefra, actually. That's pretty funny. 3 Rat Pier, 1 TG Werewolf, and 3 Red Resonator, which is a pretty good card on its own. For spells, we've got almost exclusively Tutors, 3 copies of Resonator Call, 3 Shaddoll Fusion, which I hope won't be as bad as they look on paper, 3 Terraforming for our 3 Oracle of Zefra, and 3 Zefra Providence. Because Providence doesn't have to specifically target monsters, we're allowed to play 1-ofs for the traps, 1 Celestial Crusade, which destroys a card your opponent controls, and 1 Zefra Divine Strike, which is kind of Solemn Judgment. So, we can't gloss over the extra either. It deserves discussion. This is the tightest space has ever been, and I know I say that every video, but I mean it this time. We're playing rank 4s, and we can't even find space for cast out. So first are our Shaddoll fusion targets. We have a Shek for rats and Yangzings, and a Grista, sorry, to get Zefraxa into grave, and a Winda to send Zephyros and also just be busted. Cloud Castle, Chaofeng, and Danglong are all parts of the combo, and Ignister is a backup option if we ever need to play through Hate or Solemns or can't execute the entirety of the combo correctly. The True King VFD is also a combo card and enables the portion of the combo that makes Bahamut Shark and Tree Toad. Tigress, Broadbull, Drancia, what is this? Wild Bow and Invoker are basically the minimum amount of Zoodiac stuff we can play. In a perfect world, I'd like space for rank 4s and like a Crystal Wing because we have Resonators and extra Zoo guys, but this is not a perfect world. Despite that, we're going to do all we can to improve it as best we can and jump into the games. So our first matchup is up against DDD, a deck that I think will be very good in an upcoming format. I expect there to be a ban list update before or immediately after Raid comes out. Not because I think the decks that currently exist will be able to compete with Zoodiac, I don't, but I think Konami wants us all to be playing Zoodiac so they can push product. And in that scenario, I think DDD is the deck that is close to top tier, but going to sneak in under the ban list. And as a result, and the release of Lamina, I think it will be a mainstay in an upcoming format. As a result, we have a tough match ahead of us, except we've opened the combo. So because we have Grammaton, Red Resonator, and effectively an Oracle of Zefra in our hand, we can execute it. Important to note, Oracle can be searched by Terraforming, Red Resonator can be searched by Resonator Call, and Grammaton can be searched by the new search spell. So really, you're playing like 6 copies of each of these combo cards. Let's go ahead and get that Oracle of Zefra. We're going to start by activating Grammaton and then sending a Zefra Ampilica to the top of our extra deck, setting this guy's scale to 1 and also getting Zefra Ampilica to the top of our extra deck. Afterwards, we're going to activate Oracle of Zefra. Usually at this point in the combo, we would add a Zefraxi to our hand, but because we've already drawn one, I'll just, I don't know, get a Satellar Knight Zefra? I mean, it doesn't really matter. We're going to summon Red Resonator, use its effect to get Zefraxi out, and then immediately sink into Danglong. If bad things are happening, you know Danglong's behind it. Danglong is going to use its effect to get a Zefra Nui to our hand, and then immediately send another one to the graveyard. We will then set scales at 1 and 7 with our Zefra Nui and our Grammaton, and then special the Zefra Ampilica and the Zefraxi. The Zefra Ampilica's effect triggers, which gets us back the Zefra Nui, and then we are going to go ahead and Synchro Summon Chaofeng with the Danglong and the Zefra Ampilica. We're going to do a little bit of Chain Magic, activating Danglong's effect as CL2 and Oracle's as CL1. Danglong is going to get us a copy of Zefraxi to the board, and Oracle is going to get Zephyros the Elite to the top of our deck. Afterwards, we're going to use Zefraxi's effect. Make sure you hold until this point to do that, to target the Zefra Nui, which now becomes a tuner. Then we're going to overlay these 2 Zefraxis into an MX Saber Invoker. We are going to use Oracle's effect to draw and discard a card, which is, of course, Zephyros the Elite. Then we're going to use MX Saber Invoker's effect to get Zoodiac Beast Momorat. After that, we're off to the races. We're just going to set a bunch of Zoodiac Beasts on top of here, enough to use the effect a bunch of times. Use Broadbull to special summon Momorat first, and then to search for TG Warwolf. After that's done, we are going to go into Drancia and destroy Chaofeng. That allows us to add a Red Resonator to our hand, but this is just for, like, replayability, this could much more easily be like a Ghost Ogre or a Ghost Reaper. I mean, you can't play Ghost Reaper with this deck because you have no space in the extra, but any of the broken tuner guys that are also hand traps. Afterwards, we're going to summon Zephyros the Elite by returning a Mulmurat to our hand. Then we are going to go ahead and summon TG Warwolf off of the special summon of Zephyros. Then we will sync with TG Warwolf and the Zefra Nui, which, if you'll remember, is a tuner, into Cloud Castle, use its effect to get back Danglong, overlay into True King VFD the Beast. Once that's done, we're going to use Drancia to special summon the Mulmurat from our hand, and use True King VFD to call Water, go into Bahamut Shark, and then go into Tree Toad. Except, if you were paying attention, I called Earth. So that was a mistake, and since we don't play any rank 4s, we can't dig out of it, but True King is really good anyway. We're going to use his effect and call Dark. Now Dark monsters my opponent possesses, it's just possesses, not has on their side of the field, will not be able to activate their effects. He's going to go ahead and summon Flame King Genghis, and what do you know, nothing happens. And then he 1-for-1s for Lamina, and what do you know, nothing happens. And then he goes into Gust King Alexander, and what do you know, he can't fusion summon, so he ends his turn, and right after that, he is just going to go ahead and concede. So our second matchup is up against Mermail, playing this card, Dagoran, the Mad Flame Kaiju. As you know, a card that on YGO Pro, for some reason, does not have any art. We've opened pretty poorly. We don't have the combo here. We're one card off, but we still can make some setups occur. We do get to go first as well, because since he's playing Water, he picks second. We're going to use Oracle in order to get a card to our hand, and then use Grammaton in order to send a Zefra Nui to the top of our deck. Then we're going to set the Satellar Zefra, as well as Grammaton, and special summon a whole bunch of creatures. We're going to get Zefra Nui and what is this? Zefraxi and Zephraya. Then use Zephraya to make this guy a tuner. Then use Zefra Nui to add a stun spell to our hand. This is kind of what you do if things don't work out in your favor. Do your best to play stun by adding cards like Celestial Crusade to your hand. We're going to then immediately sink into a Ignister Prominence, and then add a Red Resonator to the top of our deck, try and go off next turn. We will then set one Celestial Crusade and end our turn. Our opponent will draw, start off with a Deep Sea Diva, and then get a Neptibus, the Atlantean Prince. I'm like, well, that is target number 1 for Celestial Crusade. Fire it off, boys. We're going to get rid of this Zefra Nui and then add one of the search spells to our hands. But what do you know? He's got instant fusion. Here comes the one, the only Norden, getting back Neptibus, and even though he doesn't have any effects, he can send for cost, so he sends Dragoons. Dragoons allows him to get Abyss Megalo. Abyss Megalo allows him to activate a Neptibus effect that he banished from hand, as well as like a heavy infantry, as well as Abyss Megalo's effect itself to get an Abyss Scale, and at this point, I am just about done. So one thing I'll say about this deck is that it pays to be adaptable. You can't really just blindly go for the combo, even in the face of set cards, because things like Solemns can really ruin your day. As a result, it really rewards players who are willing to play conservatively, go for equally lethal but less flashy lines, and try and play around cards. So we get to go second here. He's playing Dark World's Tier 1 meta threat. Gonna get a Graph in his graveyard first turn, special summon it by normal summoning his Brow, and then immediately draw a whole bunch of cards off of it, set a whole bunch of cards, and flip a Drag down to the grave. Just classic Dark World shenanigans. He's going to take one of my Zefra Providences. Probably not the best idea. It's not particularly good in multiples because I can only activate one per turn, but still, I gotta commend him. It is obviously the best card in my hand. So I know that Dark World plays like Mind Crush, and they play a bunch of Solemns. So that's really all this could be if it's not a bluff, and I don't think he's super willing to bluff, just because his spell cards are so high reward. Things like Drag down to the grave are not likely to make it to his side of the field. As a result, I am going to play around what I believe to be either of those spells and not go for the combo. I do have a Red Resonator, I do have Oracle of Zefra, and I do have a Grammaton. Effectively, I can use Providence to get Oracle, to get Grammaton. I don't get the Oracle Search, but I already have the Zefraxi in my hand, so it doesn't matter. However, I decided to go a little more conservative. I'm going to go ahead and use Resonator Call to add another Red Resonator, and then use Oracle of Zefra in order to add Grammaton. Since he didn't pop the Grammaton with a Mind Crush, I'm almost certain that it's Solemn at this point. He's going to use Grammaton's effect in order to send the Necroz Zefra to our extra deck, and then we're going to normal summon the Red Resonator, which immediately gets Solemn Warninged. Feeling pretty good about that. Now we can make a giant Pendulum Summon that will blow our opponent out of the water. Going to go ahead and summon 3 guys, including a Zephyr Core, who is targeting this Zefraxi, and a Zephyr Empilica, who is targeting this Zefra Nui. So the Zefra Nui will come back, the Zefraxia will come back, and then we can overlay the two rank 3 monsters into an Invoker, which of course represents a Molemorat. Now, Molemorat is both a search and a removal spell, so we'll stop at Broadbolt to get TG Warwolf, and then we'll go to Drancia so we can do a bunch of damage by attacking, and he concedes. So we're back with a deck. We actually did get to play against a lot of meta threats. DDD is going to be very good, although that deck we didn't really play against a whole lot. Water is already a pretty good strategy, and it certainly bowled us right the fuck over. And while Dark Worlds, of course, is not even close to meta, playing around Solemn is something that every Pendulum deck is going to have to grapple with at some point in their life. I don't think this list is anywhere close to optimized. I think it has nowhere to go but up. Just in my short amount of games played, I would say the Shaddoll fusions were obviously not very good, and freeing up some space in the extra deck to play things like Castell and maybe some better generic synchros would be pretty sweet, but I'm not going to remove them because I have a commitment to being a bad player. I would also like to play another copy of both the Yang Zing guys. Drawing multiples of them really sucks when you're trying to combo off. I didn't particularly appreciate the Satellar Knight Zefras, although when they were good, they were very good. Otherwise, we don't have a lot of really meaningful ways to interact with cards that screw up our game plan. We have no Twin Twisters, of course. We only have the one trap card, which requires you to be able to do a lot of things to even add to your hand. All in all, very powerful strategy. Would love to see it become meta. It's a shame it relies on Zoodiac so much, but still decisively good. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed watching me play a little bit of the synchros that I so desperately avoid on this show. I hope you enjoyed one more in a long line of bad decks playing the Zoodiac engine. And most of all, I hope you just enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give me a like, a comment, or a subscribe. It really helps me out. And if you want to see me play the decks I make on this show on stream, first of all, I'm sorry that it's taken me this long to get the stream up and running again, but life finds a way to ruin my streaming schedule. But I will be on Twitch intermittently, way more starting next week, at twitch.tv/monobluetron. Link is in the description. And finally, if you have an idea for a deck or archetype you want me to play on a future episode of this show, let me know in the comments section below, and I will do my best to accommodate you. Otherwise, I will see you on Tuesday.